But before you ask me the question, I think it's important for me to qualify myself for your viewers
That's
so they can
very true.
understand
That's
who
very
am
true.
I, where I
That's very
come
true.
from.
That's very true.
And I'm gonna do it very briefly. I hated cops when I was growing up. I went into law enforcement because it was an opportunity to get out of the project. Because I started my career in corrections, state corrections.
Okay.
Most of my career was in internal affairs. So I spent most of that time locking up corrupt officers. So when I talk about policing, I don't talk about it from this fanboy perspective, like a lot of these guys out here, some of them who are very successful on YouTube, where the cops could do no wrong.
It's a matter of opinion. If I'm right, but I'm leaving no for now to go outside.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Matter of Opinion. I'm Walls P, and today we got a guest, Strategic Eyes. And I've been following his channel. It started off with a back and forth banter between him and my partner. They had a little misunderstanding and everything like that. And that's how we wind up having the collabo. As far as the misunderstanding, do you want to get into it a little bit or?
Yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, so it started off with the video that we had about the Jacob Blake situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally felt like my partner, I KO'd him.
Come on, man. You starting trouble, man. You starting trouble, bro.
Ray, no offense, but I feel I took the W on that one. So Strategic saw the video and left a comment and was like, yo, old Joker, school little Joker, he needs to go back to school, whatever, and get educated, as a joke or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I took it as a joke, but my partner, he felt kind of offended, so he went back and responded, and there was a little back and forth banter and everything like that. So you want to see speak on how you saw it on your from your perspective?
All right. Well, once again, when you're dealing with the internet, you don't know what people's experiences are, where they're coming from. And a lot of people hide behind the internet, and the internet can be a real cruel place. That's a fact.
Yep.
When I came across this video, number one, I support all up and coming YouTubers like myself, especially from the African-American community. I feel like we need to come together. We need to grow. We need to support each other more. So when I saw your video, I said, yo, look at these young brothers doing their thing. I know you like 50, but I still called you a young brother. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
shots fired,
baby. I'm giving it to everybody.
I know, right? Hey, gotta love it.
So when I saw you guys talking about this topic, I noticed that you were coming from the perspective of somebody who was actually reading the case, getting your facts together, and coming from a factual point of view, which is the basis of my show, giving people my opinion from a law enforcement perspective. My opinion is informed by my professionalism and what I've experienced in my training. And your partner, intelligent, nice guy, young brother, nothing but respect for him. But he was speaking from the position of what I've observed so many other people speak from, which is from emotion, and emotions are important, but they don't always bear from facts. And when we have bad facts, sometimes people could get hurt, like what we've seen over the summer with people rioting and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I kind of made that joke, and I didn't made the joke. I made the joke. I'm like, yo, the big homie. Now, how's that? I didn't know that your homeboy is a very educated young man, just getting his masters and all that stuff. Big up to him. Much love to him. It didn't matter whether he was in school. It's just
it's just a joke. I
gotta say this, man. I did not want to disrespect that young brother in any way. We got enough people disrespecting us out here just for being minorities.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? So if he did have the opportunity to come on the show, I would have definitely told him, water under the bridge, no disrespect. There's nothing but love for you, young brother. And I apologize if you feel that my statement was disrespectful in any way.
Definitely. And like he said, water under the bridge and everything like that. But he had an issue with me on it too, because he was like, yo, I didn't defend him and everything like that. But I was like, how could I defend you if I took it as a joke?
That's true.
We had two different perspectives. So we.
But you know what though? I'm from Harlem, and I'm in my late 30s.
Yeah.
And this younger generation is different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we better or they better. I'm just saying we're different.
That's true.
From my generation, you handle your own battles, man.
Yeah, man.
So if you want strategic, you gotta come to me, baby.
But yeah, this is why I love following your channel, because even though you're a person in law enforcement, you give a straight up unbiased perspective on the case.
I appreciate that, man.
You know, if you saw bad policing, you're gonna call it like it is. If it's good policing, you're gonna call it like it is. Because, like you said, a lot of people put their feelings into the perspective and just throw out the facts. Absolutely. And you know, that's where we go wrong with this. That's where a lot of us go wrong with it. So, like I said, I love your channel. I love the Discord. Hey, everybody, join the Discord on Strategic's channel. Like it be on there, it be live. You got some debates going on, any current topics and everything going on, especially with law enforcement. Hey, he even spoke on the Gorilla Glue girl, you know. So and that was a trending topic going on too. So tune into his channel. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. This brother right here is very knowledgeable and, you know, doing his thing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, man.
No problem. All right, so the reason for this show here is I basically want to get a perspective of, you know, a person in law enforcement. And I know there's a lot of people that have questions too, like want to ask certain things that they're probably afraid to ask a person in law enforcement, and they don't have the opportunity to. So this is a good platform where you got two brothers, you know, basically exchanging ideas, exchanging voices to kind of bridge that gap between, you know, law enforcement and people who are afraid of law enforcement.
But before you ask me the question, I think it's important for me to qualify myself for your viewers so they can understand who am I, where I come from.
That's very true.
And I'm gonna do it very briefly. I'm from the hood. I'm from the crack epidemic Harlem. That's when I grew up. You know, I hated cops when I was growing up. I went into law enforcement because it was an opportunity to get out of the projects because I had no qualifications to do anything else. You know, you just have to take a test to be a cop and have some college credits. So most of my career, because I started my career in corrections, state corrections.
Okay.
Most of my career was in internal affairs. So I spent most of that time locking up corrupt officers. So when I talk about policing, I don't talk about it from this fanboy perspective, like a lot of these guys out here, some of them who are very successful on YouTube, where the cops could do no wrong. I come from a perspective where a lot of guys who are out there like FTP, I used to think that way too.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I went into law enforcement, I spent most of my time going after corrupt officers. Doing that, I'm a police officer, a beat cop, and now I see things from that perspective, and that's kind of within myself to try and share to everybody else to try and get everybody else to bridge that gap. So I just wanted to throw that out to your viewers so they understand where I'm coming from. This is not some pro cop guy. This is just a guy who...
We froze up a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
It froze up a little bit. It's all good. And see, that's the thing too. Like, I don't know. I'm on the outside, you know, I'm on the outside looking in. I don't know if there's a lot of guys like in your field that basically was on both sides of the fence like that. You get what I'm saying? Like that was also from the hood, whatever, then in internal affairs and now a cop and everything like that. So you got basically like, you know, all angles on, you know, stuff that's going on to give that unbiased perspective that maybe somebody else, even in your field, can't even give because they wasn't on both sides of the fence.
That's true.
You know
That's true.
So that's very you know, that's very important there.
Thanks, man.
All right. So the first question I want to ask is, how did you feel about the George Floyd situation?
When I saw George Floyd on that ground, I almost cried, man. You know, I think anybody who watched that had to feel something. If you didn't, I've heard racist people say, nah, man, that was wrong.
Yeah, because that could be you, that could be your son, your daughter, that could be anybody, you know.
And we literally watched the murder. Now it's coming out that he may have had fentanyl and all this stuff in him. It does not matter.
Yeah,
we watched that man scream for his mommy. That was a strong man. That was a tall man, strong man, fit man. He screamed for his mommy. We watched him die. When I saw that, it broke my heart.
Yeah,
it broke my heart. And I will say that every single law enforcement person that I spoke to, which is not everyone, it broke their hearts too. And there was no excuse for that. And you hard pressed to find somebody, except for like the fringes of the internet, where people could be whatever they want to be and however ugly they want to be, who will say that in some way that was justified.
Because I mean, with the internet, they got a chance to be anonymous and say whatever they want. And you get some people who'll say whatever they want because just to the simple fact to be trolling.
Absolutely.
Get a reaction out of people.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that was definitely ugly, man, to like stay on somebody's neck. And you know, it's deep when you got a grown man calling for their mama. Like, you know, it's real. Like that right there hit, like that touched me. Like that gave like chills up my spine, because that was so wrong on so many levels, man. Like, yeah, it broke my heart.
Every single law enforcement officer who's trained understands one basic concept. When somebody's in handcuffs, you own them. And when we say you own them, we don't mean like they're your property. We literally mean like their welfare, their health, their safety now belongs to you. When you're walking with a perp, and I'll call them that because that's how we talk in the inside in the industry. You're not just, and you see the cops holding a person. That's not just for show.
Yeah.
That's what if a victim or a rival tries to assault this guy. You got to be able to pull him out the way and protect him quickly. So once that person is in your custody, they're in handcuffs, they're under control. It doesn't matter what happened before that. Now that they're in handcuffs, you have to take care of them. And the fact that this guy kept his knee on his neck after he was in handcuffs, reprehensible. There's no excuse. And anybody gets on the internet, if it's some of the big guys like the Officer T guy and all these other guys, any of those guys, I don't want to say the name, but any one of those guys make excuses for that action, they're not being genuine with you. They're being disingenuous, and they're probably doing it for other motivations, probably big old green.
Yeah. I will say this though, to like, as far as like everybody I came across, nobody looked to justify the police officers in that case. Like the ones I came across, nobody looked to justify it. As far as like the internet, like I said, I didn't see anybody like, as far as like any threads or anything like that of anybody justifying it.
I didn't get anybody justifying it, but I saw people trying to mitigate it by saying, well, you know, he was on fentanyl, so that's probably what killed him. That's you know, and stuff like that. And from, you know, on a scientific level, on a law enforcement level, yes, there's something called excited delirium, where somebody who's under the influence of drugs, when you restrain them, they can literally die from that restraint. Yeah, but once again, if he didn't have his knee on his neck, this wouldn't have happened. Or we'd have a different conversation if he was just handcuffed and sitting down and died sitting up. You know, it'd be a different conversation. Exactly. Then you have 20, you know, I'm exaggerating, but you got 20 people saying you're killing him, take your knee off his neck, and he's just like basically like shut up, and then he puts his hands, it's so odd, his hands in his pocket, you know. It's kind of like,
to me it came off as boasting, like
I got control, you know. It was a power trip.
And that's why you saw, you know, the whole movement with Black Lives Matter, which that's another entity in itself. Absolutely.
I've got mixed feelings about them. But I certainly felt that pain and that anger for George Floyd. I understood that, you know, and it took for me, and we can, I'm not going to go into it, but, you know, so if you want to go into it later, we can. But I'll just say this. It took for me being in the center of mayhem to finally change my mind as to what I was seeing and to have issues with the movement.
How did you feel about the Ahmaud Arbery situation?
Another tragedy. From the beginning, I said to myself, it doesn't matter what Ahmaud Arbery was doing inside of that house. He didn't deserve to be hunted down like an animal. So from the beginning, I was saying that on my, I think that might have been before, you know, started supporting the channel. And once again, you have a much bigger channel than mine, and I'm so grateful that you take the time to not just watch my shows, but also participate in my community. I appreciate that immensely. But from the beginning, I said it didn't matter what Ahmaud Arbery was doing in that house. He did not deserve to die. And then it came out that he wasn't doing anything. It came out that this young man was going to go to school to be an electrician, and that he would go into that house often and never steal anything. That there were Caucasian old people, young people of all ages going into that house as well. Never was accosted by anybody. And that the owner said that he left water on in the back of the house, and he believed that Ahmaud Arbery would stop there to drink some water along the way of his jog. So from the beginning, I figured that one out, because it didn't matter if he was stealing something or not. Those guys had no right to do that. And it just turned out, at this point in this case, I'm not so much upset with the McMichaels. I'm more upset with the response from the police officers than anything else. Not even upset with the cover-up, because I understand those things, and we'll get through those things. You know, we have mechanisms in place, say the video never came, but it came out, and now we know about it.
Yeah.
But when you watch that body camera video of the first officer, I think his name is Menshu, who came on scene, who watched Ahmaud Arbery take his final breaths and act like he was nothing and proceeded to take pictures of the scene. That broke my heart right there. I asked for Officer Menshu to be fired on my channel.
It's funny too, because another channel that I watch, he was speaking about the, the Ahmaud Arbery case or whatever. And I got into it with one of the people that commented whatever, and they was justifying the actions because they were like, hey, they were doing the citizen's arrest, there was people in and out of the house and everything like that. And I was like, but at what point, if a person is jogging whatever, you're constantly impeding where they're trying to go, and you're coming with guns at them, like at what point do you go into defensive mode? You get what I'm saying? Like at what point? Because
of course
it's that,
absolutely
that's a mechanism, like especially if you're just jogging and minding your own business and you committed no crime whatsoever, you kind of you view that as a threat,
right?
At least like stop, ask what's going on or something like that. But yeah, you view that as a threat. So I was like, with him attacking the guy, I kind of justified it because I'm like, you've been following them forever. How long? God longs how long? And then I also point out the fact that you have the numbers. So why would you need to confront him with a gun?
Well, when we look at the facts of this case, the facts gives Ahmaud Arbery the right to defend himself, because they show that his handprints were on the back of the car of Roddy Bryant, William Roddy Bryant. William Roddy Bryant's testimony says that he used his car to block in Ahmaud Arbery when he tried to escape and go in the opposite direction. We know that the McMichaels did the same thing. At this point, and we live in a country that we know that for the most part, we don't deal with vigilanteism.
Yeah.
For the most part, you call the cops and you let the cops deal with it. So if I'm jogging and somebody is using their big trucks to block me in, they have guns, they're saying God knows what. We don't know from text messages and Facebook posts that the McMichaels racial slurs when talking about black people. They also like to speak about how they want to kill black people. We know that that was said inside of the preliminary hearing for bail, etc. We don't know what they were calling him when he was running. Do we really think? I mean, we could speculate, but do we really think they're like, excuse me, sir, we would like to inquire into a possible theft? No.
That's true. That's a very good point.
This guy had every reason to believe that he was stuck in a 1958, 1962 lynching. And he was in panic / survival mode.
And and another thing too is like, this wasn't like, hey, a one stop. It was going on for quite a while.
Absolutely. He was running for miles.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they measured it was over a mile that this chase was happening before he was finally like, I can't run no more.
Exactly.
Something's got to give.
Yeah.
But I don't expect much from murderers.
That's true.
The McMichaels are murderers.
Yeah.
I don't expect much from nepotism and cronyism. That's what we observed with how the prosecutors tried to shelve this case. But when you're an officer and you arrive on scene and there's a man dying from gunshot wounds, and you're like, hey, you okay? You guys okay? Yeah. Oh yeah, you shot this guy? Okay. Let me go get my iPhone so I can take some pictures of the scene.
Yeah.
And another officer comes on the scene, he's like, did you do anything with this guy?
Yeah.
He's like, nah. He's like, I got to do something. And now that guy starts to try to do life-saving measures. And that guy's like, do you have a medical kit? And this dude says, nope. Nope. Like, nope, I don't want to cook you right now.
Exactly.
That guy does not deserve to be a cop because he doesn't have any compassion. And you know what's funny with the Andre Hill case? Remember Andre Hill?
Yeah.
They fired that cop. I think is going to be facing murder charges. I think.
Yeah.
He got indicted, right?
Yeah, he did.
Right.
He did.
But the pretext for them for firing that guy was that he did not provide aid and comfort to Andre Hill. They didn't touch him after they shot him for a long time. That provision is a provision in all law enforcement agencies across this country. Officer Menshu should be terminated for not providing aid and comfort to Ahmaud Arbery.
Now, let me ask you this: does that go out the window if, say, two people, if a suspect is injured or something, and a cop, you know, is injured, like in a crossfire or something, is it standard procedure that the cop is supposed to get medical attention first?
Absolutely. There's one cop. So one cop has a gunfight with a suspect. That cop gets injured. I now arrive on scene, but it's only one of me. I'm going to give aid to the cop first. Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, the cop is presumed to be the innocent party. He's doing his job. You're the bad guy who decided you wanted to have a gunfight. I'm going to help this guy.
Yeah.
But I'm still doing my job because I'm only one person. And I'm providing aid and comfort to somebody. I just choose the cop as I would like a cop to choose me.
Now,
you know,
is it a crime if like you chose to give the suspect comfort first?
I don't think it'd be a crime, but I think it'd be a cultural issue.
I get it. Definitely no. But I was just asking because I'm like, you know,
but once again, we assess the situation, right? If the cop is shot in the arm, and I'm like, yo, Frankie, I just made that name up. Frankie, you all right? Yeah, I just got shot in my arm. And this guy's bleeding out his chest.
Then you would.
I'm going to go to that guy first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If Frankie is shot in his artery, and now even though he's shot in the arm, he could bleed out. I'm going to Frankie. You know, and we're all macho. Most people in law enforcement is macho anyway. So if Frankie just got a flush to him, he's gonna be like, yeah, all right, man, I'm okay. I got a flush, I'm good. You know, so now you're gonna go to that suspect anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
But if you're gonna tell me to choose who I want to live, I'm not here to choose. But I'm gonna focus on the person that I know is operating in good faith, and that's that person who has that shield.
That makes perfect sense.
Now let's mix it up. The gunfight happened. There's 3 people injured. The cop is injured. The suspect is injured. And a kid that was just involved in the crossfire. Who am I going to? I'm going to the kid. You know what I'm saying? The most innocent person is the kid. He didn't even get to live life yet. Frankie signed up for this. I signed up for this. At least I got the years I got. That kid ain't even start yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point right there. So with you working in law enforcement, do you approach like different ethnicities in a different manner? Say somebody was speeding, whatever, right? And you pull them over, whatever. Would your approach be different if the person is Chinese or black or white or, you know, Latino?
I would like to say no, but I think we all suffer from implicit bias. And I think one of my implicit biases is that I grew up in New York City during a time when the NYPD was not doing a good job. There was a lot of stop and frisk and racial profiling. It's been documented. Massive lawsuits and historical cases came out of the stop and frisk era. So I think when I approach African Americans, I tend to give them the respect that I wish, and I give respect to everybody, but I think it's a subconscious and a conscious effort to make sure that me wearing a uniform, that they feel the way I felt. I wish I was treated when I was engaging with the NYPD when I was young. The funny thing is, you know, I don't know if this is going to be a follow-up question you're going to ask, but the funny thing is sometimes dealing with my own people is the hardest part of the job.
Yeah, I can agree with you 100% because let's be real, even if you're taken outside of law enforcement, whenever we see one another, most people look for a handout or a cop out, like, look, man, you one of us, whatever, so let me go, you know, let me slide, you know, stuff like that.
Well, when I deal with members of our community, it's more along the line of distrust. I think a lot of times I understand this. Like, I'm not one of these folks who's going to come on here, whether it's your platform or my platform, and make it seem like, oh, black people are just difficult. No, there's historical context to this. There's a reason why African Americans have a distrust for police. I know, I witnessed it. Coming out my house to go to the corner store, and some dude from Long Island is throwing me up on a wall. Where you going? What you got on your pockets? It's like, dude, you know I live here because you searched me 3 times last week. You know what I mean? I understand that. So, but I think there's a perception that black cops are somehow worse than if we use the word white cops. Like they're gonna be harder on you. They're gonna abuse you more. And if you don't feel that way, then you're a sellout. How do you work for the man? So I get a lot of that attitude. Like, it's just this distrust, like, you know, screw you. You know, you a cop, and not only are you a cop, but you're a black cop, so you're the worst of the worst. And that's heartbreaking for me, not because of the way I'm treated. No, I don't care about that. Like I told you, and I tell my viewers, most of my career was in the prison system. You learn how to take insults there.
Yeah.
It hurts me because the only way we could really get change is if we do integrate these organizations that have historically been racist. You can't be on the outside and ask your oppressor, if you want to use those words, to help you. You have to help yourself. You have to be a part of the change, part of the solution.
That's true.
And I see my department, other departments, hand over fist, turning backwards, doing backflips to try and recruit minorities. And the community just pushes back like, no, you're not taking my sons and my daughters. No, they're not going to join.
In most circumstances, yeah, blacks view like police officers, like if you're a police officer or something, you're a traitor. You know, like you're joining the dark side or something like that.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's why. So yeah, that's why I get where you're coming from. Like I can understand like why it's so hard for, you know, like precincts to bring in, you know, blacks and minorities and things like that. Because even now, like if you have a situation and you call the police, you're viewed upon as a bad person, like, oh, you're a snitch, or you know, you a sellout, things like that. So it's like amongst blacks, police officer is like the worst word. Like,
yeah,
other than the N-word, police officer is like the worst word to use.
Absolutely.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's sad.
It is. It's very sad.
But that being said, I think what we fail to realize is even though we're in a moment and a culture of change right now, we fail to realize that we've spent decades indoctrinating young men into criminal lifestyles. Decades of young men of our men in our community getting sent to prison. And in prison, take that from a former CEO, they don't teach you nothing but how to be a better criminal. That's a fact. So we really have to think about what real change means, because real change means like literal social engineering of teaching people how to love themselves again.
Yeah.
You know, having so psychologists and sociologists out there on patrol is not enough. You know, you literally have to change the poverty situation that we have in the city, the educational system that we have, and the culture of us glorifying people who do negative things. The very basic culture of no snitching. Yeah. It's your community. You don't want to snitch to Frankie and Johnny, police officer Frankie, police officer Johnny, police officer Strategic. But I don't live in the hood no more.
Yeah.
We get in our cars and we drive 45 minutes north, south, east, west. You stuck in that community.
Yep.
So if you tie one hand behind your back, you hurting nobody but yourself. And I just feel like the discussion that and I don't want to take it in a different direction, the question you gave, but I just feel like we're not really talking about what real change is. We're just constantly putting band-aids on. Okay, cops are shooting mentally ill people, so how about we give them psychologists when they call the police? But what about aftercare so that they never have to call 911? But you know what that stuff is going to cost, my brother? Money. So nothing changes.
In my opinion, for any change to have happened in any civilization or any country or anything like that, for change to happen, you have to invest into that area. I remember back going to school and everything like that, even the cats who are on the block, because nowadays it's a different breed of like drug dealers and everything like that.
Oh yeah.
They're a different breed. Back when I'd be going to school and I would see the guys hustling on the block, they would be like, yo, you better make sure you go to school. You know, don't be out here like me. You know, even they were guiding you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
You know?
I had the same conversation with the dudes. I used to sing and stuff like, and it's classical and stuff like that, and a choir. And the boys would be like, yo, I saw you, you know, once in a while we get a local channel. So, yo, you stay, don't let nobody tease you on nothing. Anybody tease you because you singing Bach or Mozart, you come to me and I take care of them.
Yep.
Because those guys, once again, they felt on it as a necessity.
Yeah,
they was feeding kids. I'm not glorifying it. It's horrible, but they felt like they were doing what they had to do. This new generation, it's just cool. This new generation, mommy's poor, but they still making enough money to put some Jordans on your feet, but you just selling to be cool. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a totally different generation now.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is, man. But have you had a situation where you had to de-escalate a situation with like a perk, pretty much?
Well, all the time. I mean, I've been de-escalating situations my entire career, because when you work in a prison system and start off in prison, and I'm gonna meet you on the streets as a police officer. So when you work in a prison system, you understand that everybody who you're up against is the real deal. This is a bona fide criminal who, if you could look at his rap sheet, you can see he's killed people, you can see he's beat people up, you can see, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to meet somebody with mutual respect, because he's a real badass. You're not a badass. You're a family man. And if you're trying to be a badass, then you're a fool, because he's a bona fide badass. So we learn in corrections to de-escalate. And contrary to what people believe, others know about the system I worked in, people didn't put hand people like that unless it was absolutely necessary. You always went through de-escalation first, if you could, to the point where when you put hands on a guy, other inmates would be like, yeah, that guy deserved it. They tried. They tried to talk to him. You know, he was still violent, so they had to do what they had to do. Now, in the streets, I take that same lesson to the streets, especially since I was policing older. I'm not the same young guy I was. I don't want to be fighting people. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes I have to, but I don't want to, because I could get hurt and they could get hurt. So de-escalation is always the key. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work.
Before we got rudely interrupted, the question I had was, in your line of duty, is it standard procedure to use your taser force before you actually draw your weapon, or does it like depend on the threat level, so to speak?
So it certainly depends on the threat level.
Okay.
There is no, so like the police department, when it trains you, they don't really tell you how you should deal with these situations. They leave it up to you.
Okay.
As the experienced officer. So like there's common sense. So obviously if somebody's unarmed, you can't shoot them. They'll teach you that. That's a fact, but that's not just your lesson in the police academy. That's the law. You just murdered somebody who was unarmed. If somebody has a knife, it's up to you to determine if you can safely try a taser to disarm them, or if you feel that they pose so much of a threat that you might want to use your weapon to stop that threat. You know, and the reason why they give you so much leeway is because you can't predict these situations. No two stabbings, no two gun battles are the same. And you cannot predict how a person who's in that stressful situation is going to perceive that threat or act. So that's why we have that latitude. And I think a lot of times part of the problem and the divide that we have right now is that people look at these situations after the fact and they say, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? You know, and I think there's two good examples that really shows how wrong we can get it by second guessing these cops in some of these situations. And those two situations both came out of Pennsylvania. One was a Ricardo Munoz knife situation where the officer shot him, and the other one was Walter Wallace out of Philly.
Just to add to that too, like I completely 100% agree with you. Because the thing that, you know, the people on my side of the fence argue is, their argument is, well, you know, a police officer is supposed to be trained in de-escalation. If they use their taser or whatever, this, that, and the third, or whatever, however the situation goes, they should be trained to try and use any means necessary before they draw their weapon.
But I also have to add that a lot of times, because people aren't trained, they don't know the limitations that we know. So for instance, if a guy is coming towards me with a knife and I pull out my gun, you probably say, or whoever on the side of the fence, as you say, on your side of the fence will say, well, why didn't he pull out his taser? But I'm trained and I know that he has on a North Face bubble coat and that the taser's not going to go through it. So in this instance, in the Northeast right now, I think you're in the Northeast, right?
Yeah.
We're both in the Northeast. You're in Jersey. I'm in New York. Tasers are ineffective unless you've got a mentally ill guy who's butt naked running down the street. The taser's ineffective because guess what? The taser prongs are not going to go through winter coats. And it'll also find difficulty going through jeans, really, but it could go through jeans. But winter coats, no. Because under your winter coat is your hoodie. And then under that is a t-shirt. Not going through. So I'm, as a trained officer, I'm looking at that situation. I'm evaluating and I'm saying, all right, the chances of success of using this taser is extremely low because of the way that this person is dressed. Will I have time to now transition to deadly, which is your gun, after I fire the taser? Or will the time it takes me to fire this taser mean that he now, and it be ineffective, meaning that he now can come stab me?
Yeah.
So a lot of it is also that misinformation. Tasers are not even 50% effective.
Yeah.
On good days. Even so, we look at this. Yeah.
What I was gonna say was, see, that's exactly why I said, you know, people on my side of the fence is because on the outside looking in, we don't have knowledge of this. We don't know what's going through, like, the way you assess the situation. And you're absolutely right. You have the training to assess these things. We don't know none of these things. So us on the outside looking in, we'll just look at it as, oh man, you know, he should have at least, you know, tried to tase him again or whatever the case may be. But you as an officer, you did your diligence to be educated on the situation to know how to go about handling that particular situation.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
that's a teaching moment for me and people who are outside of law enforcement who don't know these things. We're not privy to that information, you know. And I think that's where the disconnect be.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important for us as a community to be educated on these things because cops are making mistakes out there. There are cops who are killing innocent people. And the problem is when you defend the situations that you shouldn't defend, you lose the people that you need to back you up.
I agree.
You get folks who are like, well, they always say that when you really need them at this time. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I spend so much time on my show trying to talk about the people that I feel are real victims of injustice. I say their names all the time. You know, Ahmaud Arbery, you know, Andre Hill, Tatiana Jefferson, people that we don't talk about, but then I'll call out situations like, you know, Breonna Taylor, how complicated that situation is, where there's so many different victims and so many different bad guys at the same time. And, you know, my favorite target, Jacob Blake, you know, who I rail on all the time, you know what I mean? Because that the Jacob Blake situation, more than any other situation, is a situation where somebody was paraded to us as a hero when he was nothing but the contrary. You know, he was the worst face of a movement we could possibly choose. You know,
and that's the thing, man. I get into it back and forth a lot with, you know, Jacob Blake's situation. I get because the main sticking point I realize people say is, you know, the 7 shots was excessive. Excessive. And I can go with that. Yes, it was excessive, but I use the analogy. It's like if you come to rob me, like say you break into my house and you got a bat and I pull out a gun and you like, whoa, you went too far. You took it to that. You took it to that level.
Right. To piggyback on what you said, that people are saying that the 7 shots are excessive, and you said that even you could probably feel that way. I don't feel that way. As an officer, I understand the totality of the situation, but I look at it from that officer's point of view. This guy is known to you as a wanted felon on a serious felony, right? This guy fights you and your colleagues, bests you basically. He wins the fight. This guy has a knife in his hand. You tell him to drop the knife. He's not dropping the knife. Then now we know from the investigation that came out from the district attorney, the Kenosha district attorney, we know that he turned around as though he was going to stab the officer. And a lot of people don't want to accept that. And I don't understand why they don't want to accept that African-American witnesses attest to seeing the same thing. African-American witnesses says it looked like he turned around like he was going to stab the officer. So if that's the case, we're looking at this in hindsight, but if we're taking those facts as facts, I'm going to shoot you as many times as it takes for you to stop coming towards me. And if that takes 7 times, then that's what it is. Because we can't forget that he put himself in that situation. He's the one who, having so much police contact, still decided he was going to pick up a knife. You know what he said in the interview with my man? He said, you know, I dropped my knife while I was fighting the cops. And, you know, that's my knife. I like my knife. So I picked it up and I was just going to rest it in the car and then throw myself on the floor with my hands spread so that they don't shoot me. What? Are we
dumb?
Yeah.
Like, you done broke all the laws whatsoever as far as where you should have got shot, and now you're gonna just throw the knife in the car. Come on,
Listen, I'm giving Jacob Brate more credit than he wants us to give him. Jacob Blake is a guy from the inner city, from Chicago. He's not dumb. He's street smart. He knew what he did was wrong, and he knew what he did could have got him in a situation he got it. But what I think the problem is that Jacob Blake was an alcoholic, and I think he was an alcoholic, and he had anger management problems. And the Jacob Blake we see now is not who Jacob Blake really is. But you see flashes of him when he gives his interviews. He's a very proud, very machismo guy. But getting shot neutered him. It brought him back down to reality. So this Jacob Blake is not who Jacob Blake really is. And I don't want to dominate the topic, but I just want to leave it with this. This is the type of guy Jacob Blake is. He gave an interview with some brothers and sisters on YouTube, and he describes Michael Strahan as the big black guy, gap-toothed guy who sold him out. That's how he talks about Michael Strahan. Come on, man.
Yeah, I remember that too.
That's an ignorant brother, man.
Yeah, I remember that too. We can't put like these people as, you know, martyrs, so to speak, when all you have to do is comply.
Absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? All you had to do is comply. And like I said, man, when you look back into the facts, how he felt entitled that he was supposed to take his baby mother's car for him to go to work with the kids, the car and everything like that or whatever. Like, come on. And you had a warrant for your arrest.
But that's not even what happened. Like, it's so much, and that's, you know, for it's you're clearly a brother who's looking for facts. And the funny thing is that so much misinformation is out there that even people who are trying to find the facts find it hard to get those facts. But and that's why I take my facts straight from the investigation from the district attorney.
Okay.
And that's not even what happened. And Jacob Blake,
okay.
Jacob Blake even testifies to that not being the case, because, and that's another reason why I don't like his attorneys, Benjamin Crump, because he constantly makes up false narratives. You know, I respect what he's doing. Somebody's got to fight for us, and he does a good job doing it. But I don't respect how he goes about it by riling people up with these fake narratives. So what really happened is that, and this is from Jacob Blake right here, and it's backed up by the district attorney's report.
Okay.
His baby mama is arguing with a neighbor, and he agrees with the neighbor. And so she gets mad at him. He's not supposed to be there. He's got an order of protection out against him and a warrant.
Okay.
But the baby mama allows him to come over to celebrate the child's birthday, because we know how women are. Women are the glue that keeps this society together. They have hearts of gold. So her thing is, yeah, you sexually abused me. Yeah, you physically abused me. You did all of that, but we got kids together, and I don't want this child to suffer because of what we going through. So she lets him come over. So now this argument happens between her and the neighbor. He agrees with the neighbor. She now starts arguing with him. Jacob Blake says that he decided to take his kid and go to the store to get the kid away from the arguing mother and the angry mother. That's what Jacob Blake says. The investigation by the Kenosha district attorney, which uses the mother's statement, Jacob Blake's statement, witnesses' statements to come to their conclusions, they say that he just took the car. And it's like, I'm out and I'm taking my kids, like on some spiteful type thing. Like, oh, you want to argue with me? I'm taking my kids, even though he's not supposed to have the kids, on some kidnapping type thing.
Yeah,
that's how. So his version is, I'm being a hero and I'm removing my child from a verbally abusive atmosphere. And the investigation is, we arguing, well, I'm taking the kids, which is something that abusers do. They use kids as power and leverage over women. And one thing that was very profound for me watching the district attorney give their verdict and their findings is that the DA said, let's not be mistaken, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob Blake is a domestic abuser. That was profound for me.
Wow.
Because it was a dose of reality.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know all of those details, but thank you for breaking all that stuff down to me, man. I definitely appreciate that, because like you said, man, trying to find the truth nowadays is kind of hard, because you got so many different people saying this, people saying that, but you getting it straight from the horse's mouth, like, that can't beat that. Can't beat that. Yeah, that's the literal facts of what went down.
Yeah.
You know?
And in this situation, especially during the shooting, this was a predominantly black community. So we have 4 Caucasian witnesses, and those 4 Caucasian witnesses were the police officers. And then we have dozens of other witnesses, and they were all African Americans, and they corroborate damning evidence against Jacob Blake. And that's what profounds me.
Yeah.
How we can't accept the facts.
Yeah, that's deep.
That people get so dyed in the wool, so entrenched in their emotions that they refuse to acknowledge what is truth, even if it's somebody who looks like you from your same experience who's giving you that truth.
The way it is once you have your mind made up on a situation, nothing the person can say or do is going to change that person's mind, because you just straight tunnel vision in your beliefs.
Right.
And that's bad.
Right.
That's bad. That's not healthy to be that way, you know?
Right. Absolutely.
So my last question for you is, so where do you feel the disconnect is as far as police interaction and civilians? Because I guess in a sense, people feel like they're in danger at times when they go to interact with police. So where do you think like that disconnect stems from?
I think that question means different things to different groups. I don't feel that disconnect when I deal with Caucasians. I don't feel that disconnect when I deal with some Latinos. I feel that disconnect when I deal with many, not all, but many members of the African American community. And the reason why that disconnect exists is because of the actions of police departments. It's our fault. This is just what it is. Now, should we as members of the African American community try and now change that perception and grow away from those sins and not let those sins of the past dictate our present? Sure, we could do that. But we do have to acknowledge that it's the police department's fault, because I'm not 100 years old. I'm in my late 30s. And just a decade ago, I was getting thrown up on a wall. A little over a decade ago, I was getting thrown up on a wall and asked where I'm going, and my pockets getting rifled in. The first gun that was pointed to my head wasn't from a thug. It was from a cop when I'm 16 years old, cracking jokes with the homeboys in the staircase. And to this day, as an officer, I still don't know why that guy did what he did. And then, y'all smoking crack and all that stuff. And like, no, we're not, and it was just abuse, it was abuse. So it's those experiences that African Americans have experienced that make them feel the way they feel about cops. And then those folks have children and pass those wounds onto their children. So now, even if their children never experienced it, they experience it through their parents.
Yep, they come in with a preconceived notion.
Exactly. So we need to change that as a community, but policing also needs to do their part to change it. And I see a lot of it happening through programs like community policing, which is kind of what I do. I'm like in a special enforcement division where I do community policing, where I go out there and I say, here's my card. If somebody's not getting stabbed, raped, or murdered, don't call 911. Just call me. If I'm here, I'll come and deal with it. And you see me every day, and I come to your community meetings and I listen to, what your issues are. I'll come deal with it. That familiar face. Yeah. If I'm not available and I'm off, then I'll tell you, hey, I'm not working. You got to call 911. But that's one step. Giving people a familiar face, getting officers who are embedded in the community. So I'm in charge of a couple of housing projects. Yeah. My job is to stay in those projects, just hang out with them. My job is to secure turkeys for Thanksgiving. And this is a low income community. So now I'm the guy who's making sure that they have a good Thanksgiving. Yeah. I'm the guy who's making sure they have toys for Christmas. I'm the guy who is helping them deal with their domestic issue, hopefully without violence. Hopefully it's just a verbal dispute. And they know that my first inclination is not to lock up their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and I think that goes a long way. And I think if we keep going on that path, we'll get there. But I think the media also needs to get off their high horse and stop trying to paint this race war situation that they're painting, where it's like every cop interaction is a racist interaction.
I've never had a bad run-in with any police officer. And even though I was tried to be taught to have that preconceived notion about police officers, I'm the type of person, I'm not just going to take what somebody say and go in thinking, okay, this is what it is. No, I go through my experiences. Now, before I get into that, another thing that when I was watching your live stream that you said that really stood out to me was when I asked the question about how to change the narrative with hiring police. Should they go through a more, psychological process? And you was like, no, how about we look into their history, speak to their exes, speak to their neighbors. Once you do that as part of the hiring process and you do it, anonymously, you can weed out a lot of the good and the bad cops. coming
Right.
into the force.
Mhm.
You know, another thing too, like I don't know if you can speak on it, but I'm, you
Sure.
know, I don't have, you don't got to give your point of view in it, whatever. But a lot of people believe in defunding the police. Me, I'm not a person who's
No.
a proponent for defunding the police. That's just my take on it. Because number one, they figure it's gonna hurt their pocket, it's gonna hurt police pockets or whatever. And I could have my facts necessarily wrong, but to my knowledge, even if you have the bad cops who are there, defunding the police is not gonna hurt them cops because cops are in a union.
Exactly.
So it's not gonna hurt that person's money. What is gonna hurt is the new people coming in.
Right.
It may hurt their pockets. I could have my facts wrong, but
well, let me clarify. First of all,
Yeah.
I have no problem talking about this because I
Okay.
talk about it all the time on my
Yeah.
show.
Okay.
And my views are you give cops a raise.
Yeah.
You know, but like, so for instance, let's say when they say defund the police, like you said, we're union employees, right? So the city, the town, the state, whoever you work for has to come to an agreement with your union. First of all, the union's never going to agree to taking a pay cut unless it's going to benefit their officers that's already on the job. So you most likely end up with a situation where they take a pay cut for the new people, but then they take that money that's saved and actually give the people who's been there while a raise. But what ends up happening is they usually take. So I'll tell you what happened because I'm in a department like most departments across the country that has been defunded. They just take away programs that's been in place to actually help people. So when they defunded my department, the first thing that went was homeless outreach. So they said, oh, well, we don't want cops doing homeless outreach because that's part of like the reform thing. But now the homelessness is even more rampant because the agencies that are now supposed to take over, they're not prepared for that. You know, one day they're doing this other thing, the next day they have to deal with a homelessness problem. They don't like, what do we do? They don't have the staff, they don't have the training, they don't have the infrastructure. So that's a problem. The next thing that they did was they shut down the stuff with the schools. So now you don't have no kids interacting with police officers with programs. Now these cops weren't in the schools as cops. Like we're talking about the programs where the cops actually could have basketball tournaments for the kids and stuff. That's what they shut down.
Yeah.
I would think that reform would actually want more programs like that. But that's how government works, because at the end of the day, these politicians really don't want to defund the police.
Yeah.
Because the moment that crime goes up, who are we going to blame? The politicians. So they look at that, they're like, I can't really cut the narcotics unit. I can't really cut homicide and gangs. So I'm going to take away the programs that you probably would really want if you were paying attention, but you're not paying attention because you're not going to the community board meetings and the budget meeting. You protesting on the street and they hear you, but you're not going the next step by saying, I want to be a part of the budget process. So what we should do, like you said, is absolutely start expanding that background investigation where you're talking to teachers, neighbors, friends, relatives. I said it, I don't really mean it because I think it could end up being unfair. But what about an ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, you could talk to them and you could have a scale that weighs that.
Exactly. Because if you get in it from all these different angles, you now basically have a picture painted about that person.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you hear from the teacher, from the neighbor, one thing, and they all kind of say this, but then you hear from one ex-girlfriend, they say like some far-fetched things like he was an abuser or something like that, but then you like, okay, let me speak to another ex-girlfriend. You speak to that ex-girlfriend and she's like, nah, he wasn't an abuser or whatever. You're gonna look at it like, okay, that might have been far-fetched where they had a bad breakup, so you know, it's kind of sketchy because everybody else is saying different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And what happens to the contrary when you talk to that ex and she's like, or he's like, that was an amazing person.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Now you know you got a good candidate. You know what I'm saying? So these are the things we got to do. We got to think outside of the box. But one thing I don't agree with, and I don't know if you said it in the comment section or somebody else, is forcing minority officers to work in minority communities.
Yeah, that was Vic that posed that question.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a good question. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. It's a question that people are actually talking about. So in no way, so Vic, good for you for asking that question, because that's on the debate stage right now. But what people fail to realize is that what it ends up doing is it discriminates against minority officers. Because unfortunately, due to so many reasons, the history of impoverishing our people and all, and racism and red line, all that stuff, low income communities are mostly comprised of minorities in big cities. And they're also some of the most violent places to work. So you're basically going to say all the Caucasian cops could go work in downtown and in the suburbs where things is chills. And then all the blacks and Latinos got to work in a war zone.
Yeah,
How fair is that?
That's not fair at all. You know, if anything, you're gonna look at it like, what kind of racist procedure? You get
Exactly.
It's gonna bring that stigmatism. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, would it be a decent? It still would be a bad idea to me anyway, because we're dividing people by race.
Yeah.
But would it be a decent idea if it was just, you know, all of the areas was the same? Okay, it's a decent idea. Maybe you could make the case that, well, these folks come from the same culture, they can relate with each other. But when you have that imbalance where in the areas where there's mostly Caucasians, there's going to be less crime. It's not less crime, but less types of crime. So, like when I worked in state corrections, the majority of rapists was Caucasian people. The majority of serial killers was Caucasian people. The majority of drug dealers was black people. Well, who would you rather hang out with?
Exactly.
So it's not like one group of people does less crime than others. It's due to their circumstances, they'll do a different type of crime.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I just don't feel like it's a good idea to do that, and I hope that's not something that they implement moving forward.
Nah, like you said, I don't see that as being right. I see it as keeping it diverse. Because like I said, getting back to what I was saying, what I was saying also is I've never had a bad experience with a police officer. Matter of fact, I'm not gonna say a run-in, but I had a situation where a police officer was actually contacted. Now, for those who are watching, we know like Jersey and New York got hit with a whole bunch of snow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a whole bunch of snow. Yeah. So I'm in a 2-car household, right? So I took time to shovel both cars out or whatever. So now one of the batteries on the car is dead. So I moved that car to, jump the car or whatever. So I put chairs there. Now I know you're not supposed to, you're not supposed to block parkings, but people 9 times out of 10 have a respect factor for parking etiquette when it snows.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I put the chairs there or whatever. So as I'm trying to jump the car or whatever, I see a SUV like struggling to get into a parking spot. So I'm like, I hope they did not get into my parking spot. Just so happened they was trying to get into the parking spot right in front of that spot, which wasn't kind of shoveled. Now remind you, they had an SUV or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm looking, I'm like, please do not park in my spot. Like I'm breaking my neck looking to and they see me looking like I must be invading dude's spot or whatever. Yeah. So it's a woman. I didn't realize this. So she goes around the corner or whatever. I think she just left. So I'm sitting up here trying to jump the car, come back around. This time she goes in the parking spot. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I roll up to her. I was like, excuse me, ma'am, can you, like, you got to move out of this parking spot because I put my blood, sweat, and tears to move this spot. I'm just jumping my car, whatever. Oh, I'm not moving my car. F you, blase, blah, cursive. Now at this point, all my niceness just went out the window. Yeah. So I'm like, ma'am, you have a parking spot right here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you move this car, move it? You got a truck or whatever. She just started flipping out. Right. Now, I know for a fact I was in the wrong, but I was like at this point, I was like, yo, I got to say something to get like this chick mad, whatever. So I was like, all right, man, you're going to regret you parked here or whatever. So I grabbed my chairs and walk off or whatever. Now I know that basically counts as a threat. Yeah, it's definitely a violation. So
it's not a crime.
Yeah. So she comes, start taking pictures, whatever, and I'm like, "What are you taking pictures for?" Oh, in case something happened to my car, whatever, yada yada. So we're going back and forth. So
still can't prove that you did it.
So she calls the cop. So the cop, it's cop come. It's a Spanish guy. He hops out, whatever. He's like, hey, did you call the cop? I was like, no, I didn't. That was the lady over there, whatever. So he goes to the house because I saw where she went in the house at. So he goes there, talked to her, whatever. So he came back and spoke to me or whatever. So he was like, hey, so what happened, whatever? And I told him exactly what it was. And I was like, I told her, you're gonna be sorry that you parked there or whatever. So he was like, what do you mean? I was like, look, hopefully I wish somebody vandalized her car or a car spin out and smash into her car for parking there. Right. Karma. Yeah. So he kind of gave me the side eye and was like, that's kind of because he was like, that's kind of, threatening, whatever. He was like, my sergeant said he's gonna be on his way here or whatever. So, just hang tight. So I'm like, all right, he goes back and talk to her.
That's a first of all, I want to say that's a wimpy ass department, because why the hell is Sergeant coming for
Well,
something?
I think I think they were on their way, because my neighbors upstairs was like, that woman across the street, she called the cops for everything. Like she just like she,
I digress because who
Yeah.
knows what she said on
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
don't know what she said.
Yeah. So he comes. So I get the car started, whatever, and everything. Park and boom. So he comes back to me and he's like, "Hey, my sergeant's not coming over here, whatever." This and third. He was like, "Look, just for
I figured that.
Yeah." He was like, "Just for a record and everything. I need your driver's license, whatever. Just to have make a report or whatever." I was like, "That's no problem." I was like, "My license is. I live right here. My license is in the house, whatever. Let me run upstairs real quick and I'll grab it." I was like, "Let me just adjust the car a little bit better in parking, and I'll get it." He was like, "All right, no problem." So he went and spoke to her. By the time I got done doing that, he was already in his car. So I'm like, "All right, give me 1 second, officer. I'm gonna run upstairs and grab it." He was like, "No, you don't have to. Just give me your name, your information, whatever." So he pulls it up or whatever, and he's like, he was like, "All right." I was like, "Do you need me to get my license still? Because if you need it, I'll run." He was like, "Nah, your picture's here and everything, so you good to go." And he was like, look, I understand. Like, I know how it is with the snow and everything, because we got like 25 feet of 25 inches of snow. Yeah. So he was like, "Look, I understand, with the snow and everything, you put your blood, sweat, and tears to dig the cars out and everything." He was like, "But you do know it's like you can't protect the parking spot, I was like, "Officer, trust me, I get it 100%."
But there's a human nature factor.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, "Officer, I get it 100%. I was like, but once she yelled and started cursing at me, it kind of like made me it kind of derailed my way of thinking or whatever. So I was like, look, as time went by, whatever, mere bag of shells. Like, I'm over it. Water under the bridge. I parked both my cars, whatever. I'm all good. He was like, all right, that's fine. He was like, but yeah, for future references, just don't even argue, whatever, this, down, the third, because it ain't worth it. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. It isn't worth it. And I was like, all right, officer, thank you. And, he went about his merry way. Now, say if I was a person who I was looking at it as, oh, I'm black, so you just that's why you're coming at me, stuff like it could have went in left field.
Could have, yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people was like, I wouldn't have told the officer, that I threatened them. I was like, no, I'm gonna tell him exactly what happened, because say if while she was taking the pictures, me and her was having a back and forth banter, and she had it on video recording and was taking the pictures while recording. I'm like, soon as she showed that, guess what? I lost all credibility.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So if I just tell the situation like how it is, and he knew I was sincere, even if he probably could have took it to left field, but he didn't. Why? Because I complied. I spoke to him in a nice manner. You know what I'm saying? So there was no hostility or anything. If people have that mindset when they're interacting with police, it'll make a world of difference. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you did that in New York, it would just been a violation. Like, it's not an arrestable offense. It would just be take a report, and then the person could use the report to get an order of protection.
Okay.
Like in New York, you could smack somebody and it's not a crime. It becomes a crime if you cause pain and injury. So we'll ask you, we'll be like, are you injured?
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, I'm good. Like, okay. All right, so let me get your ID. You get your ID.
Yeah, exactly.
Report. You guys go your separate ways.
Yeah.
Violation, kid. Now, if you said you got hurt, that was a misdemeanor.
Story. Yeah, it's like, do you want to press charges or how you want to go about it?
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. This is your neighbor. This is somebody you live next to. Somebody who y'all supposed to have some sense of community, right? And the funny thing is, you could look at this from both ways.
Yeah.
But I think your way is the more generous way of looking at it, because I was in that same snowstorm.
Yeah.
We within a couple 100 miles of each other, or maybe even less. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And she knows how hard you had to work to clear that spot.
Yeah. Now,
but she don't care. What was her race?
She was black. Here's to her defense, though.
Right.
She did say she shoveled out a spot up ahead and somebody took her spot.
Right.
But here's the killer part.
Right.
Once the cop drove off, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, I said she had an SUV.
Yeah.
The spot that she was trying to park in front of the parking spot she couldn't get into.
Yeah.
How about a little punk Honda Civic or something pulled right into that spot?
Yeah, unbelievable. But this is my thing. My thing is, and I don't want to make it into anything more than what it is. But my thing is, we supposed to be neighbors. Why not say, listen, I'm a woman. I already you know, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but
Yeah.
like we're stronger.
Yeah.
I already shoveled. I actually successfully shoveled
Yes.
out
Yes.
this one back here. Somebody took it. Can you do me a favor? Can I get this one, man?
And I would have
know what I
been
mean?
like, you know what, ma'am? No problem. Like,
But instead, what did you get?
Yeah, I got hostility.
Right. So that's what I got to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, what's going on? So the car stopped. You know, they just hit 2 red lights.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you hit 2 red lights.
Exactly.
And it's like, woo, woo, woo. Well, why are you pulling me over for? Can I have your license and registration? No, I want to know why. So number one, you're not even educating yourself on the law and how this works.
Yep.
I'm supposed to get your license first before I tell you what I pull you over for.
Yep.
Why? Because if you speed off, I don't got to chase after you.
Yep. You have the information.
I have the information. Wouldn't you rather me not chase after the person for them to crash into some little kids or kill themselves in a pole?
Exactly.
You'd be like, well, why you chase after them? Well, that's why we take the ID first. Right? But it's like, no, I want to know why you stopped me. But really, you know why I stopped you.
Exactly.
But with other folks, especially immigrants, if I deal with my African-American brothers and sisters who's from the West Indies, Caucasian people, Latino people who just came into the country, who know what real corrupt police officers are like down in Ecuador.
Oh, yes.
They'll be like, officer, no problem. You know why I stopped you today, sir? Yes, I took the red light. I apologize. And 90% of the time, you know what the outcome of that is? All right, man. Give you a warning, man. Have a good day. Be honest with me.
Strategic.
What do you expect to get?
You know how many times like I did something like I, you know, ran a red light where it was turning yellow and went through it. And the fact that I complied and was nice and I got my CDL. So they're like, okay, I don't want to hurt this brother's driving record. So warning. So you're absolutely right, man.
So what do you expect to get when your disposition is F you're pulling me over for whatever reason?
Yeah.
I don't even want to say because I'm black. I don't know. You know, come on.
But that's what the first answer usually be is you pulling me over because I'm black. It's sad, but you know.
And I've heard that before. And it's like, you don't even know me, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I hear that from that younger generation. I was like, you don't even know what the struggle is. You don't even know, kid.
Yeah, pretty much. That's true.
You heard about stop and frisk. You heard about the NYPD crime teams. They don't exist no more, bro. I lived through that war.
Yep. Yeah, man.
There is no crack epidemic anymore. I used to walk outside my building, bro, and all you hear is crunch, 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 because there's nothing but crap vials all over the floor. And they don't know what that is.
Not at all. Not
Get
at
out
all.
of here,
Not at
man.
all. Not at all.
I don't know.
But yeah, yo, this was a very good conversation, man. I definitely enjoyed this. This was good. So I mean, the question I have to my viewers is, hey, what are some things that you know you would like to see as far as to bridge the gap, you know, between law enforcement and, you know, citizens, you know, to try and erase that stigmatism of the two don't coincide or whatever, or trying to defund the police and all this stuff like this. I want to hear what your guys' takes are in the comment section. Like I said, man, shout out to you, Strategic, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yo, check this guy's channel out, man, because it's some very good information on there. And his lives, oh my gosh, this guy got to be the king of live on YouTube, because like, yo, his lives are so. And for those listening, going live is not easy. Going live is very hard. Yeah. It is a very hard thing to do. I'm still trying to work out the kinks of going live. So yeah, check out his channel. Like I said, he has good content on there. He'll give you the straight up facts and raw facts on certain cases and things that you don't have the insides on. Trust me, Strategic will give you the inside information and give you an unbiased, you know, position on where he stand on that. So is there anything that you wanted to, you know, let the viewers know?
Man, I just wanted to thank you so much for this opportunity, man. Like I said, I stumbled on you guys' channel and I was like, man, I gotta support these guys.
Yeah,
you know, you guys got a great channel.
I appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure to come back on. Anytime you want me to come on, you know, and lend my expertise, it would be a pleasure and an honor. And that's it, man. I appreciate
definitely
this opportunity.
I appreciate having you on too, man. And hey, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Time for me to hold it down. Time for me to break it down. Y'all cats don't wanna see me. Y'all better mind your P's and Q's.
Oh, hold on. Before you gonna start recording it?
I did. I could just edit it, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just letting you know that if you ask me what agency I work for, I can't say it.
No, I'm not gonna
Because
ask,
the-
I'm not gonna ask
yeah.
nothing
The
personal.
rules are like, yo, you can say whatever
Yeah,
you want as long as I'm not on
exactly.
here saying nothing insane.
Exactly.
But if once you say who you work for,
Nah.
then we're gonna take it. People could take it like what you're saying is representative of the department. You know what
Nah,
I mean?
it's just like